Welcome, dear viewers, to your favorite channel, World History Flow. Let's begin. The story of Thanksgiving, often romanticized into a simple tale of shared meals, truly begins much earlier in the turbulent religious and political landscape of 17th century England. It was an era dominated by the Church of England, established by King Henry VIII, which, while breaking from Roman Catholicism, retained many of its rituals and hierarchical structures. For a growing number of devout Protestants, particularly those known as separatists, this was insufficient. They believed the Church of England remained too corrupt, too beholden to worldly power, and too far from the pure, unadulterated worship they sought. These separatists, a radical fringe even among other Puritans who merely wished to purify the existing church, felt an undeniable spiritual calling to separate entirely from the Church of England. They yearned for a society where their faith could be practiced freely, without the interference of bishops appointed by the king, or the fear of persecution for their nonconformist beliefs. This deep conviction, a burning desire for religious liberty, became the primary catalyst for their extraordinary journey. It was a dream of a new world, not just geographically, but spiritually and socially, where they could build a community founded on their understanding of God's Word. This yearning for self-governance in matters of faith, however, put them in direct conflict with King James I, who famously declared, "I will make them conform themselves, or else I will harry them out of the land." This threat was not idle. Separatists faced imprisonment, public ridicule, and economic hardship, their lives constantly overshadowed by the king's authority. Their initial escape led them to the relatively tolerant Netherlands, specifically the city of Leiden. For over a decade, they found a measure of peace there, but it was not without its own set of challenges. Their children, they observed with growing alarm, were slowly assimilating into Dutch culture, losing their English heritage and, more importantly, their strict religious upbringing. The prospect of their distinct community and spiritual legacy dissolving into a foreign land spurred them to consider an even more radical solution: a perilous voyage across the vast, unknown Atlantic to a truly new world where they could establish their city upon a hill. This decision, born of deep religious conviction and a desire for cultural preservation, set the stage for one of history's most iconic migrations. The idea of a new land, unburdened by old world strictures, began to solidify, not as an easy escape, but as a divinely ordained mission, fraught with unimaginable dangers, but offering the ultimate prize of spiritual freedom. For 12 years, from 1608 to 1620, the separatist community found refuge in Leiden, a bustling and relatively liberal city in the Netherlands. Here, they were free from the direct persecution they had endured in England. They established their own congregation, led by their pastor John Robinson, and lived as a distinct, close-knit group. However, life in Leiden was far from idyllic. As foreigners, they struggled to find stable, well-paying work. Many were forced into arduous and low-paying labor, like weaving and printing, roles often considered beneath their social standing in England. This economic struggle was a constant drain on their resources and their spirits. More significantly, they faced the growing challenge of cultural assimilation. Their children, exposed daily to Dutch language, customs, and less rigid religious practices, were slowly drifting away from their English identity and their parents' strict separatist beliefs. The elders of the community observed this trend with profound concern, fearing that their unique spiritual heritage would be lost to the next generation. The lure of opportunity, both economic and spiritual, in the New World became increasingly appealing. While they valued the religious freedom Leiden offered, they saw America as a place where they could not only practice their faith without interference, but also build a society entirely on their principles, free from the corrupting influences of the Old World or the encroaching secularism of the Netherlands. They envisioned a place where their children could grow up in an environment completely dedicated to their religious ideals, preserving their language, culture, and most importantly, their faith. They began to strategize, understanding that such a monumental undertaking required significant resources. They sought financial backing from English merchants, primarily through a group of investors known as the Merchant Adventurers. This partnership was a practical necessity, but it came with its own set of compromises. The investors focused on profit, expecting
expected the colonists to dedicate much of their initial efforts to producing goods and resources that could be sent back to England, rather than solely focusing on communal living and spiritual pursuits. This tension between spiritual ideals and economic realities would be a defining feature of their early years in America. Despite these complexities, the dream of a new life, a new beginning where their faith and culture could flourish unchecked, drove them forward. They were prepared to endure immense hardship for this ultimate prize, believing it to be God's will. The decision to leave Leiden, then, was not a rejection of its hospitality, but an affirmation of a deeper calling to preserve their identity and create a truly independent religious commonwealth.
The decision to embark on the transatlantic journey was not made lightly. It was a desperate gamble, a venture fraught with unimaginable dangers. But for the separatists, the promise of religious freedom and the preservation of their community outweighed the terrifying risks. They secured two ships, the Speedwell and the Mayflower. The Speedwell was intended to transport those from Leiden, while the Mayflower would carry additional settlers, including non-separatists known as strangers, who were recruited by the merchant adventurers for their skills and to help repay the debt incurred by the voyage. The initial departure was plagued by setbacks. The Speedwell proved unseaworthy, springing leaks and forcing the combined group to turn back twice. These delays were costly, both in terms of dwindling supplies and the precious time lost as the harsh North Atlantic winter approached. Eventually, the Speedwell was abandoned, and a significant number of its passengers, disheartened by the repeated failures, decided to stay behind. On September 6, 1620, a crowded Mayflower, now carrying approximately 102 passengers, about 30 separatists, and the remaining strangers, along with a crew of 25 to 30, finally set sail alone from Plymouth, England. The voyage itself was an ordeal of epic proportions. The small, wooden ship, designed for cargo rather than passengers, was ill-equipped for the tempestuous North Atlantic. Fierce storms constantly buffeted the vessel, tossing it violently, causing seasickness, and pushing it far off course. The cramped conditions below deck were unbearable. Passengers were forced to live in dark, damp, and unsanitary quarters, sharing space with livestock and their own waste. Disease, particularly scurvy and dysentery, began to spread rapidly, claiming the lives of one crew member and one passenger before they even reached land. Food and water became scarce, and the constant rocking of the ship made even simple tasks like cooking incredibly difficult. The journey lasted a brutal 66 days, far longer than anticipated, and the passengers endured constant fear, hunger, and illness. One particularly terrifying incident involved a critical beam on the ship cracking during a violent storm, threatening to break the vessel apart entirely. Only through the ingenuity of the crew, using a large iron screw, were they able to repair it and keep the ship afloat. Despite these immense challenges, the resolve of the passengers, particularly the separatists, remained remarkably strong. They believed their journey was divinely guided, a testament to their unwavering faith. They held prayer services, read scripture, and found strength in their collective purpose. This perilous crossing forged a unique bond between the diverse group of passengers as they faced the terrifying unknown together, united by a common, if sometimes conflicted, goal: to establish a new life in a new world.
By early November 1620, after enduring 66 grueling days at sea, the Mayflower finally sighted land. However, it was not their intended destination. Their patent from the king had granted them permission to settle in the Virginia colony, roughly near the mouth of the Hudson River. Instead, fierce storms and navigational errors had pushed them far north to the desolate and uncharted shores of Cape Cod in what is now Massachusetts. This geographical deviation created an immediate and critical crisis. Being outside the jurisdiction of their patent, the strangers, those not part of the separatist congregation, began to openly voice their intentions to disregard any authority once ashore. They argued that since they were beyond the bounds of their legal agreement, they were free to do as they pleased, threatening to undermine any semblance of order or communal effort. This posed an existential threat to the entire venture. The separatists, led by their wise elder William Bradford, understood that without a clear framework of law and governance, their fragile community would surely descend into chaos and quickly fail. They recognized that their survival depended on unity, and a shared commitment to a common good, regardless of individual religious beliefs. Therefore, while still anchored off the coast of Cape Cod, before anyone had even set foot on land, the leaders convened a momentous meeting. On November 11, 1620, in the cramped cabin of the Mayflower, they drafted and signed a revolutionary document, the Mayflower Compact. This short but profoundly significant agreement was not a constitution in the modern sense, but rather a covenant, a voluntary agreement among equals. It declared their intention to covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic for our better ordering and preservation and furtherance of the ends aforesaid. It further committed them to enacting just and equal laws, ordinances, acts, constitutions, and offices from time to time as shall be thought most meet and convenient for the general good of the colony, unto which we promise all due submission and obedience. 41 adult male passengers, including both separatists and strangers, signed the document. While it reaffirmed their loyalty to the English crown, its true significance lay in its assertion of self-governance. It was an unprecedented act in an era of monarchical rule, where authority flowed from God through the king. Here, a group of ordinary citizens created their own framework for government based on the consent of the governed. The Mayflower Compact established a crucial precedent for democratic principles in America, laying a foundational stone for future self-rule and constitutional government. It transformed a disparate group of individuals into a unified body politic, bound by a shared commitment to law and order, and demonstrating their remarkable capacity for adaptation and foresight in the face of immense adversity. Having established a temporary framework for governance with the Mayflower Compact, the colonists faced the immediate, daunting task of finding a suitable place to settle. For several weeks, small exploration parties scouted the bleak, windswept shores of Cape Cod, enduring freezing temperatures, sleet, and hunger. They searched for fresh water, fertile land, and a defensible location. During these initial explorations, they stumbled upon evidence of previous inhabitants. They found abandoned villages, cornfields, and burial sites, clear signs that this land was not an untouched wilderness, but a territory previously occupied by Native American peoples. These initial encounters were tentative and often fraught with tension. In one instance, an exploration party was surprised by a volley of arrows from a group of Nauset Wampanoag warriors, who likely viewed the newcomers with understandable suspicion and hostility, having had previous traumatic experiences with European traders and slavers. This brief skirmish, though resulting in no serious injuries to the Pilgrims, underscored the dangerous and unpredictable nature of their new environment. Finally, after weeks of searching and several close calls, on December 11, 1620, a scouting party discovered what appeared to be an ideal location. It possessed a good harbor, fresh running water, cleared fields, evidence of previous Native American habitation, and a defensible hill. They named this place Plymouth, after the English port from which they had departed. On December 21st, the Mayflower finally dropped anchor in Plymouth Harbor, and the colonists began the arduous process of disembarking and establishing their settlement. However, the harsh New England winter was already upon them, a brutal and unforgiving season they were entirely unprepared for. Their shelters were inadequate, their food supplies dwindled, and sanitation was poor. The cramped, unsanitary conditions on the Mayflower, which served as their primary shelter for the first few months, became a breeding ground for disease. Scurvy, pneumonia, and other illnesses swept through the weakened population. The mortality rate was catastrophic. By March of 1621, nearly half of the original 102 passengers had perished. At one point, only a handful of individuals, including William Bradford and Miles Standish, remained healthy enough to care for the sick and bury the dead. They buried their dead at night, often secretly, to conceal the extent of their losses from any potential Native American observers, fearing that a weakened population would invite attack. This starting time, as it came to be known, tested their faith and their resolve to the absolute limit. It was a period of immense suffering, despair, and profound loss, a harrowing introduction to the realities of their new world. Yet, remarkably, they clung to their shared purpose, burying their dead and continuing the monumental task of building their new lives against overwhelming odds.
As spring slowly began to thaw the frozen ground of Plymouth in March 1621, the few remaining Pilgrims were at their lowest ebb, having endured a devastating winter that claimed half their numbers. Their survival seemed precarious at best. It was at this critical juncture that a truly remarkable and pivotal figure entered their lives. to Squanto, better known as Squanto. His story was one of extraordinary tragedy and resilience. Squanto was a member of the Patuxet tribe, a band of the Wampanoag Confederacy that had inhabited the very land the Pilgrims now occupied. However, in 1614, years before the Mayflower's arrival, he had been kidnapped by an English explorer named Thomas Hunt, who then sailed him to Spain and attempted to sell him into slavery. Miraculously, Squanto was rescued by local friars, who intended to convert him to Christianity. He eventually made his way to England, where he lived for several years, learning English and working with a merchant named John Slaney. During this time, he gained invaluable knowledge of European culture, language, and seafaring. He finally managed to return to his homeland in 1619, only to discover a horrifying reality. His entire Patuxet village had been wiped out by a devastating plague, likely introduced by European fishermen and traders, leaving him the sole survivor of his people. It was this uniquely qualified individual who, in March 1621, walked into the Pilgrim settlement, introduced by Samoset, an Abenaki Sagamore who had learned some English from earlier interactions with fishermen. Squanto's ability to speak fluent English was nothing short of a miracle for the struggling Pilgrims. Their first meeting was understandably cautious, but Squanto quickly became an indispensable intermediary. He taught the Pilgrims how to cultivate the native corn, advising them to plant it with fish as fertilizer, a practice he had learned from his people. He showed them which local plants were edible and medicinal, how to tap maple trees for syrup, and where to fish and hunt for game that was abundant in the region but unfamiliar to the Europeans. He also guided them in identifying venomous snakes and other dangers. More importantly, Squanto acted as interpreter and diplomat, facilitating communication between the Pilgrims and Massasoit, the Grand Sachem chief of the Wampanoag Confederacy. This was a relationship of paramount importance. Without Squanto's linguistic and cultural bridge, understanding and trust between the two vastly different cultures would have been nearly impossible. His presence allowed for the forging of a crucial peace treaty between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag, a pact that would largely endure for over 50 years and ensure the Pilgrims' immediate survival. Squanto's aid was truly providential in the eyes of the Pilgrims, who saw his arrival and unique skills as a direct intervention from God, saving them from almost certain destruction. He remained with them, a constant and invaluable guide, until his death in 1622, leaving an indelible mark on the fledgling colony's history.
The arrival of Squanto in March 1621, facilitated by Samoset, heralded a new era for the struggling Plymouth colonists. Squanto's unique linguistic and cultural understanding allowed for direct communication with the most powerful local leader, Massasoit, the Grand Sachem of the Wampanoag Confederacy. Massasoit, whose domain stretched across much of southeastern Massachusetts, was a pragmatic leader facing his own challenges. His people had been severely weakened by the same devastating plagues that had wiped out Squanto's village, leading to significant population loss. Additionally, they faced increasing encroachment and hostility from the powerful Narragansett tribe to the west. Massasoit recognized the potential strategic advantage of an alliance with the English newcomers, despite their initial weakness. He saw them as potential allies against the Narragansett, whose population had not been as severely impacted by the plagues. Thus, a meeting was arranged, a pivotal moment in early American history. On March 22, 1621, Massasoit, accompanied by a retinue of his warriors, cautiously approached the Plymouth settlement. The negotiations were conducted through Squanto, who translated between English and Wampanoag. The result was a historic peace treaty, an agreement of mutual protection and friendship that would largely define relations between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag for the next 5 decades. The terms of the treaty were straightforward. Neither party would harm the other. If any Wampanoag harmed a Pilgrim, they would be sent to Plymouth for punishment, and vice versa. They agreed to assist each other if attacked by external tribes. It was a pact born of necessity on both sides, the Pilgrims desperate for survival, and the Wampanoag seeking to maintain their regional power amidst shifting tribal dynamics. This alliance, brokered by Squanto, was absolutely critical for the Pilgrims' survival. It provided them with security from attack by the Wampanoag themselves, and it ensured access to vital knowledge about their new environment. The Wampanoag, in turn, gained an ally who possessed superior weaponry and potentially a deterrent against their rivals. Over the following months, the Wampanoag shared their profound knowledge of the land, teaching the Pilgrims how to hunt local game, identify edible plants, and cultivate native crops like corn, beans, and squash, which were far better suited to the New England soil than European crops. This exchange of knowledge was not simply a transaction. It fostered a period of relative peace and mutual respect, built on the foundation of the treaty. While the peace was sometimes strained,
and instances of misunderstanding and minor conflicts would arise over the years. The initial alliance with Massasoit and the Wampanoag provided the struggling Plymouth colony with the essential breathing room and assistance it needed to establish a foothold and begin to thrive in their challenging new world. It was a testament to the power of diplomacy and shared interests, forging an unexpected bond between two very different cultures.
Through the spring and summer of 1621, under the invaluable guidance of Squanto, and with the continued assistance of the Wampanoag, the surviving Pilgrims toiled relentlessly. They learned to cultivate the unfamiliar native crops, corn, beans, and squash. Squanto taught them the indigenous method of fertilizing corn with fish, ensuring a healthier yield than they could have achieved otherwise. They also dedicated themselves to hunting and fishing, utilizing the local knowledge provided by their Native American allies to maximize their take from the abundant New England wilderness. By the autumn of 1621, despite the harrowing losses of the previous winter, their efforts had yielded a surprisingly bountiful harvest. The fields were full of ripening corn. Their storage sheds were beginning to fill with dried fish, gathered wild berries, nuts, and the bounty of their gardens. The immediate threat of starvation which had haunted them for so long had finally receded. The Pilgrims, deeply religious people, saw this success as a direct blessing from God, a divine affirmation of their perseverance and faith in the face of immense suffering. To commemorate this miraculous turn of fortune and to express their profound gratitude, Governor William Bradford declared a special Thanksgiving celebration. This was not a novel concept for the Pilgrims. Days of fasting and prayer, or days of Thanksgiving, were common in their religious tradition, typically called in response to specific divine interventions or periods of relief from hardship. This to acknowledge the crucial role played by their Wampanoag allies. Governor Bradford extended an invitation to Massasoit and his people to join them in their feast of gratitude. This invitation was not merely a gesture of goodwill, it was a diplomatic act, reinforcing the fragile alliance that had been so vital to their survival. Massasoit, accompanied by approximately 90 Wampanoag men, arrived at Plymouth, likely expecting a formal diplomatic gathering. The celebration that ensued lasted for 3 days. It was a remarkable cross-cultural event. The Wampanoag contributed 5 deer to the feast, demonstrating their generosity and their own celebratory spirit. The Pilgrims provided wild fowl, likely turkeys and ducks, cornmeal bread, various vegetables, and shellfish. The days were filled with feasting, games, and perhaps some military exercises demonstrated by the Pilgrims, perhaps to impress their allies. The Wampanoag likely shared their own traditional dances and storytelling. This first Thanksgiving, while not precisely the image of neatly dressed families and a perfectly set table that often comes to mind, was a genuine expression of relief, gratitude, and a fragile yet vital cross-cultural collaboration. It was a testament to their survival, their faith, and the unexpected alliance that had allowed them to establish a foothold in this new and challenging world. It was a moment of shared humanity, a brief respite from the constant struggles, where two disparate cultures came together in a spirit of shared celebration and mutual respect. The 3-day harvest celebration in the autumn of 1621 was far more than a simple meal. It was a profound, if informal, cultural exchange, a testament to the fragile alliance that had ensured the Pilgrims' survival. When Massasoit arrived with his 90 Wampanoag warriors, it was a significant diplomatic event, far outnumbering the approximately 50 surviving Pilgrims. The scale of the Wampanoag presence likely necessitated a rapid adjustment by the colonists, transforming what might have been a more subdued Pilgrim Thanksgiving into a larger, more boisterous affair. The feasting itself was a blend of both cultures. The Pilgrims provided what they had cultivated or hunted: cornmeal in various forms, likely bread and porridge, boiled vegetables from their gardens, perhaps cabbage, carrots, or onions if successful, and a variety of wild fowl. Historical accounts mention that Governor Bradford sent out 4 men to hunt for fowl, suggesting a deliberate effort to secure a substantial quantity of meat. The Wampanoag in turn contributed significantly, bringing 5 deer to the table. This act of sharing was a powerful gesture of friendship and alliance, providing a rich source of protein for the multi-day event. The exact menu is not fully known, but it would have been dictated by the bounty of the season and the availability of local resources.
It's highly probable that seafood, such as mussels, clams, and perhaps even lobster, which were abundant in the bay, also featured prominently. Nuts, dried berries, and indigenous fruits would have added to the diversity of the fair. Beyond the food, the celebration involved a range of activities. The Pilgrims, conscious of the need to maintain a strong impression on their allies, likely demonstrated their military prowess through drills and musketry displays. This would have served as both a form of entertainment and a subtle reminder of their defensive capabilities. For their part, the Wampanoag would have shared aspects of their own culture. It's reasonable to imagine storytelling, traditional dances, and perhaps even competitive games and contests of skill. These interactions, while not always perfectly understood across the language barrier, despite Squanto's presence, would have fostered a sense of shared humanity and a deeper understanding of each other's ways of life. For 3 days, the sounds of laughter, conversation, and perhaps even a shared sense of relief filled the air of the fledgling Plymouth settlement. It was a moment when two vastly different peoples, one a group of religious refugees clinging to survival, the other an ancient people fighting for their place in a changing world, came together, sharing food, customs, and a common space. This feast of Thanksgiving, then, was not just about gratitude for a harvest. It was a fragile bridge built between cultures, a temporary but significant moment of peace and mutual recognition in a world that would soon become far more complex and contentious.
The three-day harvest feast of 1621, often romanticized as the first Thanksgiving, marked a crucial high point in the early relationship between the Plymouth Pilgrims and the Wampanoag. It solidified for a time the alliance forged earlier that year. However, it's vital to understand that this celebratory moment was not the end of the story, nor did it usher in an era of unbroken harmony. The relationship between the two cultures was complex, dynamic, and constantly evolving, often fraught with misunderstandings, differing worldviews, and ultimately increasing tensions. In the immediate aftermath of the feast, the alliance largely held. Squanto continued to serve as an invaluable interpreter and guide, facilitating trade and communication. The Pilgrims continued to learn from the Wampanoag about agriculture, hunting, and survival in the New England environment. They exchanged goods, with the Pilgrims offering metal tools, cloth, and trinkets, and the Wampanoag providing furs, food, and knowledge. Yet underlying strains began to emerge. The Pilgrims, driven by their religious convictions, believed in their divine right to the land and the superiority of their culture. They sought to expand their settlement, clear more land for farming, and eventually convert the Native Americans to Christianity. The Wampanoag, while initially seeing the Pilgrims as potential allies, grew increasingly wary of their expanding presence and their seemingly insatiable desire for land. As more English settlers arrived in subsequent years, the pressure on Native American lands and resources intensified. The concept of land ownership itself was a major point of contention. While Europeans understood land as a commodity to be bought and sold, Native Americans viewed it as something to be shared and utilized by all for collective sustenance. Disease continued to ravage Native American populations, often introduced by new European arrivals, further weakening their numbers and their ability to resist encroachment. Squanto's death in 1622 was a significant blow, removing the crucial linguistic and cultural bridge between the two peoples. While other interpreters emerged, none possessed the unique history and trust that Squanto had built. Over the decades, as more English colonies were established along the coast, the balance of power began to shift decisively. The Wampanoag and other Native American tribes found themselves increasingly marginalized, their traditional ways of life threatened by the relentless expansion of the European settlers. The initial spirit of mutual aid and celebration eventually gave way to suspicion, resentment, and ultimately violent conflict, culminating in King Philip's War, 1675 to 1678, a devastating conflict that forever altered the landscape of Native American life in New England. The 1621 Thanksgiving therefore stands as a poignant snapshot of a brief moment of cooperation and shared gratitude, an exception rather than the rule, in the long and often tragic history of European-Native American relations.
The legacy of the 1621 Thanksgiving is complex, multifaceted, and often debated. For the Pilgrims, it represented a profound moment of survival and divine providence. It affirmed their belief that God had guided them through unimaginable hardship and blessed their efforts to establish a new society founded on their religious principles. The harvest feast became a powerful symbol of their resilience, their faith, and their capacity to adapt to a new world. For generations of Americans, the story of the first Thanksgiving has been taught as a foundational myth, symbolizing cooperation, shared values, and the peaceful beginnings of a new nation. It evokes images of harmonious coexistence between European settlers and Native Americans, a narrative often used to represent an idealized version of American origins. This narrative has contributed to a national holiday celebrated with family, feasting, and gratitude, emphasizing themes of abundance and unity. However, for many Native Americans, particularly the descendants of the Wampanoag and other New England tribes, the legacy is far more somber and complicated. They often view the traditional Thanksgiving story as an oversimplification, glossing over the devastating impact of European colonization, including disease, land dispossession, broken treaties, and cultural destruction. For them, the Feast of 1621 represents not a beginning of harmony, but a brief interlude before centuries of conflict and loss. Many Native American communities observe a national day of mourning on Thanksgiving Day, remembering the genocide of their ancestors and the injustices they have faced. They seek to highlight the true history, emphasizing the Wampanoag's initial generosity and critical assistance, and the subsequent betrayal and marginalization they endured. The Thanksgiving story, therefore, serves as a powerful reminder of how history is interpreted through different lenses and experiences. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truths alongside the celebratory narratives. It encourages a deeper examination of the complexities of early American history, moving beyond simplistic portrayals to understand the full spectrum of experiences and consequences of colonization. Ultimately, the legacy of the first Thanksgiving is not a monolithic one. It is a story of human endurance, faith, and ingenuity on one hand, and a tale of cultural clash, displacement, and profound injustice on the other. It invites us to reflect on gratitude, shared humanity, and the enduring challenges of intercultural relations, while also acknowledging the often painful realities of the past. The simple feast of 1621 holds within it the seeds of both national celebration and historical reckoning, making its legacy one of the most enduring and controversial in American memory.
In contemporary America, Thanksgiving remains a cherished national holiday, a time when families gather, often traveling great distances, to share a meal and express gratitude. The imagery of pilgrims and Native Americans sharing a bountiful feast persists in popular culture, a powerful symbol of unity and peace. Yet the understanding of this historical event has evolved significantly. Modern reflections increasingly encourage a more nuanced and inclusive perspective, acknowledging the complex historical context and the differing experiences of the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag. There is a growing awareness of the need to move beyond idealized narratives and to incorporate the Native American perspective, recognizing their immense contributions to the Pilgrims' survival and acknowledging the subsequent injustices they faced. This means understanding that while the 1621 feast was a moment of genuine collaboration and gratitude, it was also a unique event that did not prevent future conflicts or the eventual displacement of indigenous peoples. Educators and historians are working to provide a more complete picture, teaching about the Wampanoag's resilience, their advanced agricultural techniques, their sophisticated social structures, and the profound impact of European diseases and encroachment on their communities. This expanded understanding does not diminish the spirit of gratitude at the heart of Thanksgiving, but rather enriches it, inviting reflection on the deeper meanings of community, survival, and the responsibilities of historical memory. The enduring spirit of gratitude, however, transcends these historical debates. It is a universal human experience, the act of acknowledging blessings and expressing appreciation. For many, Thanksgiving has become a secular holiday, a time to give thanks for family, friends, health, and prosperity, irrespective of its historical origins. It serves as an annual reminder to pause from the busyness of life and reflect on the positive aspects of one's existence. In a world often characterized by division and rapid change, the act of gathering around a table, sharing food, and articulating what one is thankful for
remains a powerful and unifying ritual. It is a moment to strengthen bonds, to connect with loved ones, and to appreciate the simple joys of life. While the historical narrative continues to be refined and reevaluated, the core human need to express gratitude, to celebrate resilience, and to come together in fellowship ensures that the spirit of Thanksgiving, in its broadest sense, continues to resonate deeply within American culture. It stands as a testament to the human capacity for survival, for building community, and for finding moments of shared joy and appreciation, even amidst the complexities of history.
If you like the video, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get new videos like this. Thank you.